Ricky, I've seen you out there swinging that stick, even when you're suffering pain. But you can't play baseball. You're going to get ridiculed, and you're going to wind up with an injury that you'll never get over. God's going to give you a higher calling.
But all I want to do is play. When I swing that bat, I ain't crippled no more.
Ricky, your story is beyond amazing. So maybe just start off and set it up for us. Talk a little bit about how you were born and you needed these leg braces, but that did not stop you from pursuing your dreams.
Yeah, 0 through 4 years old, it was really a big obstacle in my life. I can't tell you how many surgeries, I don't know, but there were several. Because I didn't remember any of them, really, to be honest with you. And then when it became obvious that when I was 5, I started going into braces and then trying to get the legs where they would move out rather than touching one another. And back then, you didn't have anything. No one could fix it. Just a deal that you couldn't fix. And plus, they were small. They were small, frail. And then as I got a little older, it didn't stop me. I hit rocks all day long anyway. So I just hit a lot of rocks all day long. I mean, I would actually hit rocks sometimes 16 hours a day.
Wow.
And so it actually, believe it or not, it dealt me a great hand of having an excellent baseball swing. Because when it come time to get them off, I was just tagging them. Because you're hitting a little rock, and if you're hitting a stick with a rock, that's very hard to do. But that helped my vision, helped me making contact with the ball, even helped me with the stance. Even though you're kind of depleted with your legs, but still learned all of it right there. Just became a natural deal with me.
Jeff, I know your journey began with your brother, actually, right? Years and years ago. So maybe talk to me a little bit about how you even learned of Ricky's story.
Well, I will. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Ricky too. His will and determination and tenacity is unbelievable. Like, I've never met anybody like him, but he does not stop. He and I have been together on this movie for like 17, well, probably 20 years now almost. Yeah, and just trying to get it made. My brother was in a lobby of a hotel, and Ricky was sitting next to him, and he overheard Ricky on the phone talking about trying to find a director for his movie. And when he hung up, my brother leaned over and said, "Listen, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I think I have someone you might be interested in. My brother is perfect for the film that you just described. He's got a big heart and he loves this kind of movie, and you should meet him." And so Mark called me at like 8 o'clock at night. And he said, "I'm sending you a script. Can you read it tonight and meet Ricky in the morning?" And I was like, yeah, I mean, send it to me. So I read the script, and it just, it was a spiritual connection immediately. I got very emotional reading it. I loved Ricky's character and what he went through. I fell in love with the movie, and I fell in love with just the whole story, and I just had to get it made. It was like it was something that just overcame me. I can't explain it. It got inside me and it wouldn't leave. And all my friends were like, "Jeff, it's been years, move on, move on." I said, "I'm never giving up on this story." Great. Forrest Gump took 12 years to get made, or 15, so I got to just keep going. And so consequently, it's funny, there's a lot of similarities to Forrest Gump in this movie, and not just the leg braces, but Ricky and Forrest both had this innocence about them, this sweet kind of nature where they would just keep going. And no matter what anybody said or did, they just believed in themselves and wouldn't listen to anything but their heart. And that's what, turned me on to this movie, because I'm kind of that way myself. I just kind of I don't take no for an answer. My glass is always half full. So that's how it all started. And then, to abbreviate the how it got made was, it went through many incantations of different financiers. And I met a guy in a completely weird circumstance. I was coaching him as an actor. He was an investor on a movie. He never acted before. He asked me if I had anything. I pitched him The Hill, And he called me and said, I'll get the money in 3 weeks. And I laughed and said, I've heard that before. And 3 weeks later, they called me and said, I have an investor on the phone and wants to put $1 million in. I talked to him and he said, pitch me the movie. And something happened again. A spiritual thing happened. I started telling this story that I've told 100,000 times. And it just took me from inside and it just became very emotional. And Ron became very emotional, Ron Cundy. And he said, can I call you back in 20 minutes? And I didn't know what that meant. And I said, sure. I thought maybe he's going to be in for the $1 million. And he called me back 20 minutes later and said, I want to fund the whole movie. I want to own it. This is an unbelievable story. Everybody, every family member will be able to go see this movie and love it and not feel like there's anything negative at all, other than inspiration and goodness. And that's, what we all need in the world today. So that's how it all started.
I couldn't agree more. And Rickey, I'd love for you to talk about this. One of the things that I think, while it's your life story and it is wrapped in baseball, one of the things that I think is so universal is this idea of, and especially now if people feel like everything's stacked against them or an obstacle is too big that they can't, conquer it. Like, how can you, what advice can you give, or how did it work for you so that you were able to get through, some of those tougher times and stay focused on a dream or have that kind of unshakable hope?
Well, you heard a while ago when he said his glass was half full. Mine was always full, because I don't believe in the, like I said before to other people already, I don't like losing. And I don't care what it is or what it takes. If I have to die for a fly ball and go through the wall of a baseball game, which I did, and did go through the wall. Yes, I broke 38 different bones. Yes, I did. And but I don't believe in anything halfway. I just when I was speaking to these people earlier about quitting, there's no such word as quit. Never even heard of it. I just go full steam, and it's what God's given me. My father gave it to me. Same way. When I was going to be a Baptist preacher, I thought I was going to be the best Baptist preacher. I was going to be the next Billy Graham. And so anyway, saying that, getting through all the obstacles was the tough part. And then to find out when you're 16 or 17 years old that you have no disc in your spine, really a big disappointment, because it changed everything to me being in pain almost every day playing. And even though I got to sign a major league contract, it's an absolute miracle that happened. And even the night of the ending of the movie was an absolute miracle.
It's a miracle. I mean, the end of the movie is unexpected. I mean, as you know, Kelly, people can't even believe what he did. I mean, he didn't just go out there and try out for a baseball team. He went out and did a magical thing. That was my word throughout the whole movie, magic. This movie's magical. It's almost fantasy. I mean, Dennis read the script and said, did this kid actually do this? Is this a really true story? I said, yeah, I validated it all. It's all documented, and he really did it. I have so much memorabilia of Rickey that I've collected over the years, just pennants and pins and all kinds of different articles on Rickey's success and what he did, that I said to Dennis, I have it all documented in a book if you want to see it. He's like, no, I believe you. And then Dennis spent 2 hours with Rickey, and he came to work the next day, and Dennis said, holy smokes, Rickey's quite a character, man. He's got so much passion for what he does in life. I said, that's what drove him to do what he did in the movie. Yeah. I said, and he knows the Bible like back to front. I called his sister one day because I said, you know what? I got to ask you about this preaching part of Rickey. Like, is this real? Like at 8 years old? And she said, Jeff, he used to pull the little stool up and sit right in the front door, and he would preach to the whole family. He had us captivated. Rickey will tell you, he had a little pulpit that he would beat and imitate his father. And right. He does one equally as good as the other. My wife is a very devout Christian and knows the Bible. Like Rickey sometimes is astounded how much she knows, but when he starts speaking, she's like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even, that part I didn't read, or that part I didn't decipher. And then Rickey has a whole idea of that, that section. And so anyway.
The night that it happened, the big, I call it the big night. It's not that I wondered. I said, you know what? I stepped in there, and man, these chills came up and down my body. These chills just came down my body. And for the first time, I got to feel the Holy Spirit flow through my body, my veins. And I knew it was my night. And
he's not, and I can tell you, when he told me that the first time, the way he described it was he went through a lot of steps in that last scene in the movie. And he was still Rickey going through those steps as a person. And then when he came down to the wire, when he was facing like the biggest challenge of the night, like something that he could not overcome, I can't tell you what happens, but they pitted him against something that was almost impossible to overcome. And Rickey said something happened right before that you saw in the movie that's like devastating to him. He said he was like a freight train hit him. I don't want to say what it was, but he said he stood up and he didn't think he could go on. And so this is what he told me, and I'm just repeating the feeling I got. He said this Holy Spirit came inside of him, and he stood up and he didn't even know where he was, and that even who he was at that moment. And the thing overtook him. And he said, that's the only way I could do that last thing in the movie that I did, was because I was not myself. It was in me, like overtaking that moment in a really amazing way. And he goes, that's when I really knew, like, always knew that God is like controlling everything.
Plus, I drew the cross in the dirt every time.
That's right. That's right. I love that.
Cross in the dirt, and I always stood on the cross every time I got to bat.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah, and the very last, no one has ever even done this in baseball, ever. No one's ever drawn a cross.
That's his signature.
That's my signature.
Needs to be adopted. I'm going to tell my 8-year-old son that's going to be the new
No, it's Rickey's.
We could start it, just start it, period. But I drew a cross.
It would be neat.
Every time I stood on it, from the time I was 12 years old, 10 years old, I drew the cross. And you'd have people do this, but I'm not Catholic. I was a Baptist, and we had Baptist rules. So anyway, saying that, I drew a cross every time, and I always had the faith with me the whole time of my lifetime. That's why I thought I was so good. That's why.
It's your time, Rickey.
Determination and sacrifices have come down to this.